The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, welcome to our webinar today. My name is Michael Cooney. I'm one of the co-founders of WhatConverts. And today it's my pleasure to welcome Phil Frost, who's going to be talking to us about how to improve AdWords. Improve AdWords profits with proper conversion tracking. Phil and his company, Main Street ROI, approached WhatConverts a couple of months ago and suggested we co-host a webinar. And if you're like me, you're always looking for ways to improve your marketing. So Phil is the founder and COO of Main Street ROI, where he offers digital marketing and training programs for small business. I know that for many of you, optimizing AdWords and conversions is one of your top priorities. So hearing how he positions things like conversion tracking to his clients will hopefully provide us with new insights and ideas. So I'm very happy to have Phil on the line. He's going to do some housekeeping introductions and also talk about how to ask questions. And at this point, I'd like to welcome Phil and hand it over to him. Here we go, Phil.
Thank you, Michael, and I want to thank WhatConverts, the whole team, for organizing this. So today we're going to talk about how to improve AdWords profits with proper conversion tracking. One of the most common mistakes I see, and I audit a lot of AdWords accounts, when I get in there, I see either conversion tracking is not set up at all, which is a big problem, or it's set up but not actually being not set up correctly and not being used properly. So we'll talk about that today. So some housekeeping, as Michael mentioned. On your window, you should, or on your screen, you should have a window for GoToWebinar, and it should have a section for questions. And you can just type your questions right in there, and I will actually see those as they come in. I'll address anything that's urgent, or if it's not urgent, we'll save it for the live Q&A at the end. I always recommend you turn off distractions. I know personally, I get the most out of these types of training sessions if I'm not also checking my email or scrolling through Facebook. And finally, I want to do a quick poll just to see who's on the line. I just have 3 questions, and they are painless, I promise. The first one here is just whether or not you're currently advertising with Google AdWords. And so far, 100% have said yes. So this will be highly relevant for you. Let me close that out. The second question here, since everyone, sounds like most people are advertising, what your current budget is, or if you're not already advertising, what your anticipated advertising budget is. I see we actually have someone on the line with over $50,000 a month ad budget. So with a substantial budget like that, making just minor tweaks to a campaign can have a huge impact on profitability. So it looks like as far as budgets across the board, spread out pretty evenly. And this is going to be relevant whether you have a low budget or a high budget. And last but not least, just to get a feel for whether you're managing your ads in-house or through an agency. And again, you'll get value out of this regardless. If you are using an agency, it's good to have an understanding of how to be utilizing conversion tracking just to make sure your agency is actually using the right data to make their decisions. And then obviously, if you're managing in-house, you want to have this information. All right, so I'll close that. Looks like pretty close to 50-50 in-house and agency. All right, so here's what we're going to cover today. What is conversion tracking? How can tracking actually improve profits? I'll go through a conversion tracking case study where I can show you how they made more profit and more revenue per sale. I do have at the end a special offer for all of the attendees today. And I already mentioned we'll have live Q&A. Now, if this is your first webinar with me, you're probably wondering, who am I? Why should you even listen to me? Well, again, my name is Phil Frost. I'm the founder of Main Street ROI. And our business provides digital marketing services like Google AdWords management, Facebook ads management, Bing ads, as well as SEO and email marketing services. And we also provide training like this training you're on today. And we even have some more in-depth training that you can find on our site at mainstreetroi.com/training. And to date, our business has helped over 2,000 businesses with their digital marketing, and my thought leadership has been featured in Forbes, Inc., Amex, as well as Mashable. And this is my favorite slide here. I was talking to Michael earlier. This picture was taken last month, almost exactly a month ago, at my son's second year birthday. So this is my these are my two kids there. That's Violet on the left. She's over 4 years old. My beautiful wife Erin in the middle, and my son Emmett on the right. Again, this is taken on his second birthday at the West End Beer Garden on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. All right, so before we dive too deep, I do want to make sure we're all on the same page here as far as what is conversion tracking. Believe it or not, there are lots of different definitions. But first and foremost, it's important to understand that the goal of advertising is not impressions and clicks. And that's by default, when you set up an ad campaign, that is the data that you'll get. You'll immediately see how many times your ads were displayed. You'll see how many times they were clicked on, and obviously the cost associated with the ads. But you do need to take it a step further to actually get additional information. And the goal is not impressions and clicks. The goal is to actually get leads and sales after people click on those ads. So just tracking and monitoring impressions and clicks is certainly not going to get the job done. So you need conversion tracking to show you what happens after that click on the ad. And that's going to allow you to measure the number of leads and sales. You also get key metrics like cost per lead or cost per sale, and revenue per lead or revenue per sale. And those are really the most critical numbers for optimizing an ad campaign. You need to know the cost per sale versus obviously the value or profit per sale that you have. And if the cost per sale is too high, you know you need to reduce your advertising on, let's say, those particular keywords, reduce those bids on those keywords or those placements that you're targeting. On the flip side, if your cost per sale is very low, you may be able to afford to pay more for those keywords, get better ad placement to drive even more of those sales. And this is a key takeaway. A lot of businesses I talk to have the mindset that they're spending money in advertising, and they're really thinking of it as an expense. But you really want to think of advertising as an investment. And when you think about it like that, cost is only half the picture. So you really can't be just focused on the cost of your ads or the cost per click of a keyword. An example would be, is $100 per lead better than $150 per lead? And hopefully you realize that the answer to that, it's actually a trick question. It depends on the revenue from those leads. It's actually possible that you could pay more per lead and be more profitable because those leads are higher quality. You could have a higher conversion rate, and you could also have a higher dollar amount or average order value for certain types of leads. So you could be able to afford to invest more for certain leads, so pay more per lead if they're higher quality and have a higher average order value. But obviously, in order to figure that out, you have to track the revenue per lead to be able to calculate your return on investment. And in my experience, that's a big breakdown in advertising. It's hard to get that data. I'm definitely not saying this is easy, but it is possible, and that's what I'm going to show you in the case study later on. So again, the key here to understanding this is that When you don't have the revenue data, then you basically treat all leads equally. And if that's the case, you are missing out on being able to bid more aggressively to generate higher quality leads, and you are also overpaying for lower quality leads. So let's dive into conversion tracking. There's really 5 types of conversion tracking. There's tracking the web forms on your site. Most websites have some web forms. It might be a contact form, request a quote form, request a demo, whatever that form is, you want to be able to track that. There's also e-commerce revenue tracking. This is all in Google AdWords. You can set up Google AdWords tracking to actually dynamically track the revenue from all of your e-commerce sales. Then there's what's called phone call tracking or dynamic number insertion, DNI. And AdWords will change the number on the site, and you'll be able to see how many phone calls came from AdWords. Then there's also ad phone call tracking, and that's the number that's displayed with the actual ad. And again, AdWords will tell you how many phone calls came from an ad. And last but not least is something called the offline sales import, which is relatively new and definitely underutilized. I know when I talk about this, it can be one of the most popular aspects of conversion tracking, because a lot of people are not familiar with the fact that you can track offline sales that are generated from an AdWords click. And we'll talk a lot about how to do that in this presentation. But before we get to that, let's answer the question, how can conversion tracking really improve profits? I've kind of alluded to this already, but there's 3 important facts about advertising that I'm sure you're aware of, but I want to list them here. All ad clicks are not created equal. If you're advertising Google AdWords and you know this, only a small percentage of the clicks on your ad will actually take action. Typical, e-commerce sales conversion rates can be even, less than 1% to, let's say, 5% on a really, really good keyword. All leads are not created equal. That should be pretty obvious. You're going to have some higher quality leads than others, and some will actually be unqualified to even buy. And even this fact here that all sales are not created equal. Some customers are going to buy more than others, which I brought this up earlier. Some customers are going to have a higher average order value, and some customers will even cost more. So you're going to have what we call the higher maintenance customers, because they require more customer service, which ultimately cuts into your margins and makes it less profitable for your business. So you obviously don't want to be driving a lot of high cost customers. If you can avoid it, you want to be able to drive the higher value customers for your business. So that's how, if you're able to do conversion tracking right, that's how you can improve your profitability. So key takeaway here, just because you're getting clicks on your ads or getting leads from the ad traffic or even getting sales does not mean your ads are doing the best they possibly can for you. In most cases, the campaign that you're running can be optimized even further to drive more profitability. And the way you do that is through conversion tracking. Conversion tracking will tell you how to get even more out of your budget, whether it's increasing or decreasing bids, reallocating budgets so that you're maxing out your budget on the most profitable campaigns, and then the remaining budget goes to the less profitable campaigns. So 3 ways to increase profits. I mentioned this already, eliminating waste. There's waste in every single campaign, no matter how well it's optimized. That comes down to the different targeting options. So in Google AdWords, if you're doing search ads, you have different keywords that are not performing well. You want to pause those keywords or lower the bids. Placements with the Google Display Network, there are different ad variations that are not performing well or as well. Devices is actually a big area that, in my experience, is a big waster. When you take a look, if you're not already doing this, take a look at your device report and look at conversions by device. And by device, I mean computers versus tablets versus mobile. And typically there's a big discrepancy between the different devices. Likewise, time of day can be another component, geo-targeting, locations. So as far as eliminating the waste, you want to pause anything that's not profitable. Then you can maximize revenue per sale, and you can allocate the budget toward the targeting options that are giving you the higher order values. And then you can maximize your profit. And when I talk about profit, I'm just talking about within AdWords, so your return on ad spend, just looking at the revenue you're getting from the ads minus the ad cost. And you can do that down to the keyword level, the placement level, the different ads that you're using, definitely devices, I mentioned that earlier, time of day, and even locations. So let's dive into the case study. And in this case study, I'm going to show you how, first how we installed the conversion tracking, what we did, and then later on, based on what we did, we actually saw an increase of 455% in profit and 1,159% more revenue per sale. So here's some company background. This is a company that's targeting customers in the United States. And it's interesting because it's both e-commerce and traditional sales. So this is relevant whether you have an e-commerce business or you have a more traditional sales team that receives quotes and then maybe closes deals over the phone or online. Or if you're like this client here, you might have both components. So again, you can order online, or the other way to do it for this business is you request a quote and then you would talk to one of their sales reps, and then the sales rep would then do that order offline. So it would not go through the e-commerce system. It would actually be entered into their CRM system offline. And what made this interesting, if you're familiar with conversion tracking, if it was pure e-commerce, it would be pretty straightforward. You can track all of those sales using the traditional conversion tracking pixel, and then just make sure you have the revenue being dynamically pushed to AdWords, and that would really give you the full picture. But since this company has both e-commerce and that traditional sales team, and the majority of the sales were actually coming from the traditional sales team, that's what made this kind of a harder problem to solve. And before we got involved, this was the situation that they were in. They were tracking their e-commerce sales, which is nice, but they were not sending the value of those sales back into Google AdWords. So what that ultimately means, before we were involved, they were treating all the sales equally. So it just looked like, they got 10 sales one month or 100 sales one month. You don't know what the value of that sale was. So again, you can't optimize the campaign to drive more valuable sales. And in this particular case, their sales would range from anywhere from about $200, or even on the very low end, they could have $150 sales, all the way up to $50,000 sales for very big purchases on their site. So there's some big swings there. It did not make sense to be treating all the sales equally. So that was on the e-commerce side. And then they were also receiving quote requests. So again, quote requests would come in and then a sales team would sell these. So they were tracking those, but we had no idea if those leads, which we were tracking them as, were converting into sales. And we also didn't know the size of those orders if they were turning into sales. It's kind of a double whammy there. So ultimately that meant all of the leads were treated equally. And this is a typical problem. This is typically how AdWords campaigns are managed. You set up conversion tracking. You say that anyone that completes a quote form is a lead, and you try to optimize to generate more and more leads. But again, that's why I had that slide that says all leads are not created equally. I guarantee if you're treating all the leads equally and optimizing that way, you are missing out on an opportunity to squeeze more dollars out of that ad account. So let's talk about what we did to improve. Really two critical areas. The first is straightforward. There's e-commerce revenue tracking that just tracks the sales from that online shopping cart. I'll show you how we did that in a minute. And the second improvement here is using what's called the GCL ID. That's the Google Click ID. And that's how you import what we're calling offline conversions. So these are the quote requests that go to the sales reps, and then they track those in their CRM. And then we were able to track those quote requests, track which ones turned into sales, as well as the dollar amount of those sales. So let's talk about how we set up each one of those. So with revenue tracking, with e-commerce, here's how you set that up. First, if you are using a kind of off-the-shelf shopping cart, then you first want to check if your shopping cart has this built in. A lot of them do, and in some cases, it's as simple as checking a box that says, turn on e-commerce revenue tracking for Google AdWords. If that's not the case, then you want to check if your shopping cart has directions. And I know that BigCommerce, that's a popular shopping cart, they have step-by-step instructions that they publish online that you can follow and get that set up. And it's pretty straightforward. You don't have to be a web developer to follow the steps, although I do recommend having someone that is familiar with code making those changes. Now, if neither of those first two options are a possibility, and maybe you have a custom shopping cart, then you're going to want to circle back with your web developer, whoever built that shopping cart for you, or contact the support at that shopping cart and figure out how they can get the AdWords conversion code on the thank you page of the checkout. And here's what that code will look like. And I actually have that nice big arrow there pointing to the variable there. It's called Google conversion value. That's where you need to have your shopping cart dynamically put the value of the order. And if that looks a little funky, that code there is it's called PHP code. A lot of websites are built on PHP. That's why I used that. Your site might be built on, let's say, ASP.NET. That's another language. It would look totally different, so you would not be able to just copy and paste this. But if you showed this to a developer, they would certainly understand what you're trying to accomplish here. It's basically telling the shopping cart to put the total value into the code here for Google's conversion tracking. So this entire thing where it says Google code for purchase conversion page, all of this code is the Google Conversion Tracking Pixel. And then what's important is the line that I have highlighted here in red. It says Google Conversion Value. You need to put a value there, whether it's a $1,000 purchase, $500 or $5. You need to put that value for every single purchase. That's going to be a different value, likely. So then the shopping cart has to put that value on the page, and then that code gets sent to Google AdWords, and Google AdWords will now track the actual order value for all of those transactions. All right, so that's kind of the easy part. That's e-commerce revenue tracking. Next, let's talk about importing your offline conversions. And here's how that process works. So first of all, you have to understand that every click on your ad is going to create a unique GCL ID or Google Click ID. So anytime a prospect clicks on your ad, Google is automatically going to do this behind the scenes. They're going to give that a Google Click ID or GCL ID. So you don't have to worry about creating it. It just magically gets created. And the important point here is that that gets magically created and appended to your URL. So if you're advertising to domain.com, then somebody will click on your ad and it will now say domain.com question mark GCL ID equals 123456. So now your web developer can actually access that GCL ID because it's in the URL. It's very easy to get that variable from the URL, and then you put that variable into the form as a form field. And that way, when the forms get submitted on your site, that value gets submitted as well. So most likely, your forms are going into your CRM. So then that GCL ID needs to get submitted through to your CRM. Now, if it's not, you would maybe your forms just send you an email alert. We have done this as well for clients where it doesn't go into a CRM, it just sends an email alert. And in that email, you would want to put the GCL ID so that way your sales team gets that email and they also have the GCL ID as well as the contact information for that lead. And then it would be a manual process and you'd probably have them put it into a spreadsheet. Next, depends on your business. Your team is going to actually do the selling. They're going to sell over the phone. Maybe they're going to meet in person or via email, really any combination of those. They're going to have that sales process, whatever it is. And then after you have that sales process, let's say on a monthly basis, you would have a list of GCL IDs of the customers. So let's say in a given month, you had 100 contact forms submitted with GCL IDs, but only, let's say, 20 of them actually turned into customers. So now you have a list of 20 GCL IDs of customers, and ideally, you also have the dollar amount of those sales. So you'll have revenue for each of those GCL IDs that you collected. And once you have that, you actually import that into Google AdWords, and Google AdWords will automatically put that data into your AdWords reports and match up the GCL IDs with the keywords that were clicked, keywords in the ads, or if it's on the Google Display Network, it would be the placements and the ads. All of that data would go back into Google AdWords, and you can now run reports and see how much revenue you're generating per keyword or per placement or per ad or per device, even though, again, these conversions are happening offline. They're not e-commerce conversions. So here's an example of an import sheet. So when I say import, you have to get the data a little bit organized here. So this, taking a step back, this is a template that Google AdWords gives you. You don't have to worry about writing this down. Literally, you can access this from Google AdWords within the conversions area. And then you can see there's a column here, column B, for the Google Click ID. So that's the GCL ID. You can see it varies in length. I don't know why, but it can be anywhere from super long, as that row 9 is, to relatively short, as row 10 is. And it's a combination of numbers, letters, and even some dashes and underscores. But you need all the Google Click IDs. Then you can add column D there is the conversion value. And you can see that will vary based on what the actual sale was. And then you also need to know the conversion time. And that's because there is a conversion window at which point the sale has to be made. I believe it's 90 days the sale would need to be made within. Otherwise, the conversion would be too old, and Google would basically reject the Google Click ID because it would not be within the conversion window. So you do have to put in the conversion time, which is the date of the sale. So somebody might have clicked on an ad back in April, but then that sale was not made until May. Well, then the conversion time would be actually that date in May. And then when you import this, Google will match it to the actual click that was in April. And here's what this looks like in the AdWords reporting interface. This is just looking at a campaign level report, and I blurred out the campaign name for privacy reasons. But you can see there is a conversion name called GCL ID import -purchase. And this report here, just so you know what I'm doing, I segmented by conversion name. So this is showing all the conversions. Each row here is a different conversion name. And one of the names is GCL ID import -purchase. And you can see the total conversion value is $30,343. The cost per conversion for these imports, so these are offline sales. You can see there's 12 of them. So that's just dividing by 12, 583. Value per conversion, so basically your average order value, 25.28. And then what I'm labeling here is profit per conversion, which is the value minus the cost of those conversions. So you can see for every sale here, the profit is $19.44. And you can see the cost of that campaign, the total cost of the campaign is $7,000. So let's take a look at the results. So that was what we set up. And what we found after we set that up, and we found this very quickly, and it didn't take too long to get that all set up, roughly a month or so of getting it all the conversion tracking set up, and then working with the client to be able to handle the GCL IDs and be able to send those to us to import them. And after we had this running for a while, what we found very quickly was that some of the keywords were actually losing money even though they were driving sales. So that was a big eye-opener. And then some keywords were driving quote requests. And I mentioned this earlier, before we had to treat all of the quote requests equally, but some of those quote requests were actually not leading to offline sales. That's obviously a game changer. We had to treat all of those equally. Now that we could see some of those quote requests, some keywords just were driving quote requests that were not leading to actual deals. So we could obviously pause those. So here's what it looks like without revenue data. Again, this is an AdWords report where you can see clicks, you can see impressions, click-through rate, average cost per click, cost, and then conversions and cost per conversion. So if all you are doing is looking at conversions and treating all of them equally, then you are likely optimizing your campaign on a target cost per conversion. So in this case, this example here, we've got a $94 cost per conversion. And let's say that is what your target is, under $100 is okay, then you would think everything's great. But now let's look at the keyword example with revenue. So now you layer on the revenue data, and this can come from e-commerce revenue, or it can come from the GCL ID imports. And you can see that revenue here is actually too low. For whatever reason, you might think that your average orders are, let's say your average sales are $150, but you do get some lower sales and you get some higher sales. For whatever reason, this particular keyword is driving $80 sales. So your target of $100, which is what you have to do again if you're not tracking revenue, you're just setting that kind of average number there of 100 and you think you're okay. In this case, you're not okay, you're just losing money on this particular keyword. And here's an example with the quote requests. And you can see I blurred out the keyword and just said keyword number 1, keyword number 2, and then I'm again segmenting by conversion type or conversion name. And you can see keyword number 1 has 15 quotes, what we call quick quote, but it actually does not have any sales, versus keyword number 2 has 14 of those quotes and does have a sale with a conversion value of $151. And you can see the cost of that second keyword there is $108. So that keyword number 1 cost is $815, and we've got 15 quotes. Cost per quote is $54, which sounds great. And this second keyword has 14 quotes for a cost per quote of $7, which is even better. But at the end of the day, only keyword number 2 has driven a sale for $151. Keyword number 1 has not driven a sale. So that's an example of a keyword where it's driving leads. Things look great, but it's actually not, those leads are not turning into sales. Those are lower quality leads that are coming in. So obviously what you want to do is pause or lower the bid on keyword number 1, see if eventually you can get that to be profitable, and potentially increase your bid and try to drive more traffic through keyword number 2. And here's the graph just showing you, I wasn't making up the percentages there. You can see April 2015 was the first month with this tracking. That's when we officially had the e-commerce revenue tracking, and we had the GCL ID import tracking actually working, and we were importing. And we hadn't really, this was just really data collection at that point. We weren't making too many improvements on the actual campaign yet because we didn't have the data. At that point, the campaign was operating at about $20,000 profit and it had a per sale value of $52, which is very low. This company really wanted to get up closer to $250 per sale. And was taken August 2016. So over a year later, you can see the profit there of $114,000 for the entire account, and the order value or per sale value of $664. So again, what we did there is not rocket science from a AdWords management perspective. You know, once you get the data and you see that a certain keyword is not driving sales, you obviously can pause that, and then you see some keywords that are driving higher order values, reallocate and pump more money into those keywords and placements. So the recap here, again, conversion tracking is going to show you what happens after the click, so you can measure leads and most importantly, sales. Hopefully you've gotten this takeaway: a tracking number of leads and just the number of sales is not enough. That's really kind of level 1 advertising. You want to step that up to level 2 and actually start tracking the value per sale, and that's going to allow you to really maximize your budget. And the way to do that is to use the e-commerce revenue tracking and the GCL ID import to track revenue per sale. So I promised a special offer. I mentioned earlier we do publish training videos, and we have 3 step-by-step 90-minute training videos. They're each sold on our site for $97. The first one is how to set up a profitable Google AdWords campaign. The second one is how to optimize a Google AdWords campaign. And the third one is an introduction to Google Analytics. So not only getting the AdWords data, but also being able to dig into your Google Analytics data to see the behavioral tracking on your site. So you can see that's a total value of $291. And for attending today, you can get all 3 of those courses for only $97. And you can get those by going to mainstreetroi.com/AdWords bundle. And you can see that URL is on the last screen here on the upper left-hand corner. And with that, we can open it up to Q&A. I don't see any questions yet. So as far as asking questions, again, I want to remind everyone, you can type those right into the GoToWebinar dashboard window thing on your screen, whatever you want to call that. I do see some questions flowing in now. Robert asked what happened after August 2016. I just haven't updated that, so that is a valid question. I'm not trying to hide anything, but I should go back and update that.
Yeah, Phil, do you mind if I add a few things on revenue tracking?
Oh, sure.
That's a question. So I'm Michael again from WhatConverts, and we're currently tracking leads for close to 5,000 websites. So I get some insight behind the scenes and what Phil is talking about. And myself with clients, we come from an advertising background. The people that track revenue compared to the people that don't, it's just night and day in terms of how you can manage your marketing. And what we've realized, and just looking at over hundreds of accounts, is if you're only looking at leads as a measure to track your marketing success, you're just really missing out on a lot of data. And I have several examples where Google Organic shows, for one company it's generating 100 leads per month, and AdWords may be generating 20 leads per month. And so you automatically think, okay, Google Organic, that's the way to go. It's getting 5 times more leads. But once we add quote value and then actual sales value into the WhatConverts system and we report against that data, all of a sudden you find that organic and AdWords are neck and neck. Some months AdWords, even though they're getting 1/5 of the leads generated, are actually getting more sales value than organic. So you really need to get that revenue tracking working to fully evaluate your marketing. And it's so important. I see it again and again. Another insight, I'm just going to throw out a few insights that I've seen over the years with running WhatConverts. Many people discounted Bing ads and Bing organic. And again, I see Bing generating tremendous revenue for companies. So that's another insight. And people continue to discount Bing ads and Bing organic because they only generate, if you look in Google Analytics and you look at your acquisition report, organic and AdWords is typically at the top, where Bing, well, then it comes direct traffic, Bing and organic comes further down. You discount those sources. But if you add on revenue tracking, it really does change the picture. Another example is I've been involved in the directory industry and directory advertising for many years. And again, if you look at your acquisition report, Google, Yahoo, Bing have always been at the top there. And now when we start seeing the directory listings, they're always down at 7, 8, and 9. And everyone discounts the directories. But again, once you add revenue, the whole picture changes. So I can't encourage marketers enough to get that revenue data into their system. So that's all I wanted to add. That's just, a few things. Another thing I'd like to add, I don't want to take this over, but a couple of additional things I'd like to add. We have customers where they now tracking leads, and they get a lead, they put it in their CRM, they track that sale, and then, let's say they make a $20,000 sale from AdWords. So that's great. They're making profit, and they allocate that to AdWords. But now what I'm seeing more and more with data is the people that put it in the CRM, and then they take their customer attributed to AdWords. What they find is they get 2 or 3 more sales throughout the year, and maybe into the second and third year. And I was working with one customer recently where the first year, his AdWords revenue that he looked at with the customers generates from AdWords, was about $50,000. But when he looked at the second year, that $50,000 had grown into $150,000. So the value from AdWords for that one customer was triple when you looked at the full lifetime value, and that was only 2 years. So we're beginning to look more and more into the lifetime value of an attributed sale, to something like AdWords, especially where you're paying money. So
that's a great point.
Yeah,
being able to run those reports and track the lifetime value over several years, if you have the ability for repeat purchases or upsells and cross sells, then that can certainly add up. Especially like you highlighted there, the 3 times the original value.
Yeah,
that's huge, and that can affect how much you're willing to allocate then towards that ad budget.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, once our customers saw that and they actually start plugging that into what they can spend in their marketing budget, it actually supercharges their growth, because now they're realizing, right, hey, sometimes the initial sale from AdWords is what I call a test sale. They want to check how you're going to handle my first small sale. And that's the only sale that gets attributed to AdWords. And you forget all the, once you've proven yourself, you get bigger, larger sales.
Right. Yeah, and you can even start getting into different strategies for advertising and start testing lower priced offers and really opening up the funnel once you can be able to attribute those future sales back to that original lower cost or lower price sale. That can, like you said, supercharge growth. I do want to make sure, there's a question for you, Michael, from Robert. Is it possible to integrate WhatConverts with a CRM solution?
Yes, we integrate with Salesforce, Zoho CRM. We integrate with many of them. What I like about like a CRM like Zoho CRM, they have a great automation workflow. So if you change a status in Zoho, it can feed that back into WhatConverts. And if you put in the sales value in Zoho, that automatically feeds into WhatConverts. The other benefit, which I'd like to mention about WhatConverts, is that you don't have to import the the spreadsheet you're talking about, Phil, we integrate directly into AdWords. So any sales value you put into WhatConverts, you assign it to the actual lead, and that can be done in the CRM or actually inside WhatConverts. And as soon as you put in that sales value, that updates AdWords directly with the conversion value.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Definitely saves the hassle.
Yeah, because it's a little bit of extra setup with a spreadsheet, and it's definitely valuable. And I mean, one of the this is the big challenge. And Phil, I'm sure you've seen it yourself. Customers say, well, my sales team are never going to do that, or getting that revenue tracking is such a pain. But there's so many ways to do it, from the CRM. Like you mentioned, the spreadsheet's a great way as well. We even have customers who have, they run on QuickBooks, and we just say, print out your sales on QuickBooks once a week and just go in and enter the data. And, it takes 20 minutes, and then you get all that data you need.
Right. Yeah, that's actually related to a question from Michi. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. Can you touch on first touch point versus repeat, and how WhatConverts uses the first touch point as the official source for leads? I believe he's getting into attribution there.
Yeah. So with WhatConverts, we use first click attribution. So our theory on the whole thing is the first method or marketing method used to get you that customer is the most important method. So if somebody comes through AdWords, they are invariably going to come through, let's say, organic later down the road, because now they know your company name. Later, they may also receive an email from you, and they'll come through that method. So we like to take the first click attribution. We attribute that customer to the first marketing method used to get to your website and into a conversion. If people do want to go into multi-channel attribution, what we do is we can send phone calls and web form leads to analytics. And when that data goes into analytics, we create a goal completion. And you can see those goal completions against the multi-channel attribution inside Google Analytics. So if you do want to do multi-channel attribution, there's just there's a few reports inside Analytics where you can say, okay, let me look at the phone call goals and look at the multi-channel attribution there. And then you can model it. You can look at first click attribution, last click attribution, or you can look at linear click attribution. So if you want to get into that detail, we say, send the data into Analytics, and they've got tools to do that. But if you're going to look at it in WhatConverts, we believe the first marketing method is the method we like to use.
Okay, great. Kelly had a question here. It was related to the GCL ID import, and she was saying, is there a way to add revenue data into the AdWords reports that aren't tied to a website at all, manually import them? I guess I just want to take a step back and explain how the GCL ID works. Somebody will click on an ad, and Google AdWords will automatically put the GCL ID in the landing page URL. So it will be yourdomain.com !GCL ID equals, and then the actual random numbers, letters, dashes, and such. So that's the code. It's in the URL. Then at any point, you can take that code and import it into AdWords. Really, the reason I'm saying it would be through a form, because typically that's how you would collect that lead. But I'm not sure, Kelly, what you're really referring to as far as if it wouldn't be tied to a website. But ultimately,
maybe do you think he's talking about the Google Click ID? I mean, sorry, the click to call. So maybe it's an ad where you just click on the call extension number, and they don't actually get to your website. It's just a phone call. Okay,
got it. Yeah, so that gets into phone call tracking, and I'll let Michael touch on that.
Yeah, I'm actually we are currently looking at it at the moment. So we can track a click to call. with a tracking number. So you take one of our tracking numbers from WhatConverts and you put it in your system, and we can track it that way. So we don't get all the information we get if they come to the website, because if they come to the website, there's a whole lot more information we can gather from a marketing point of view. But if you use one of our numbers and you put it in your ad, we can tell you that there was a phone call from the person. Now, does that generate a Google Click ID? I'm going to have to get back to you on that. So I'm trying to think, how can I get back to you on that? Because that's something we're currently working with getting the keyword data from a Google call. We can get the keyword data. It's just a bit fuzzy. I'm not explaining it very well. So if I could get back to you, that would be good.
Yeah, and you'll have a way, Michael. I'll be sending you these questions, so you'll be able to follow up with Kelly.
Okay, I'll follow up with Kelly then.
All right, so we've got time for one more question here. Let me just comb through a lot of these we already answered. This one was from Michi again. How did the company you used as a case study identify sales by sales team? What kinds of CRM or an internal process did they use in order to identify sales teams' sales, offline sales? So I was not involved with how they're internally tracking. I do know that they use a CRM, and it's not a CRM that I'm familiar with. I'm familiar with Salesforce and Infusionsoft. I know it was not one of those, so I can't tell you which one they were using. But most CRMs have the ability to give a contact owner or opportunity owner, in which case then you can run reports and see sales by salesperson or sales team. So hopefully I answered that question, Michi. But if anyone has follow-up questions, feel free to email us at info@mainstreetroi.com. And then Michael, how should people email you if they have questions about WhatConverts?
Yeah, if they just email Michael at whatconverts.com. That's MICHAEL at whatconverts.com.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then I do have a reminder, if everyone could just complete the super quick survey at the end, just to get some feedback, and we use that feedback to improve these webinars in the future. So
Great.
Michael, thanks again for organizing this.
Well, thank you, Phil. I think that was great. I love hearing, that more people need to track revenue. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Thanks, Phil, and thanks everyone for joining us.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.